Thank you, Adam. And I want to thank Los Angeles Filmforum for giving me this opportunity and welcome everyone who's joining our Zoom today. I hope you enjoyed the films. And I most especially want to welcome and thank the filmmakers who let me use their work. I think 7 or 8 of, I lost count, of the filmmakers are with us today. And I'm really thrilled to see them and have a chance to be able to talk with them. Che works in Taiwan, but fortunately he happens to be in France right now, so he can join us. Bertrand Dezoteux is also in France, but unfortunately his collaborator Benjamin Crotty had a last-minute conflict. Eszter Szabó is in Budapest, Hungary. Katia Sophia Ditzler is in Berlin. Cigon is here from Ljubljana, Slovenia. Zaina Bseiso is here in Los Angeles, I think, right? Yes, as am I. Anouk de Clercq is joining us from Belgium. And Jeanette Ehlers sends regrets from Denmark that she can't be with us today. It truly is an international group. I just want to, by way of intros, tell you what inspired me to bring these films together was that all of them start with the photographic image, and then the filmmakers make adjustments into that realism, into the space of the image. This was different from working on top of the image, like scratching film or using visual effects to make a new visual space. These films start with the picture, but the picture isn't enough. They need to picture more. In the last 5 years, I think our relationship to truth or reality and culture as a whole seems to have shifted. And I think that implicates representation moving pictures in perhaps a new way. So it's interesting to me to talk about image adjustment or violation, embellishment, elaboration, etc., not as propagandistic methods, but as revelatory, even hopeful gestures. I first noticed this hopefulness a few years ago in some films in the Black Radical Imagination programs. There was a willingness to mess with the photographic representation by adding or subtracting things from the picture. And in that context, it was clearly an emancipatory method or strategy, really. In the films in this program, the films this program represent a wide range of interventions into the picture. I'm thrilled to see this group together, both films and filmmakers, and eager to hear from them about their relationship to the film image and about their efforts to picture more. So I'm going to go around and ask leading questions of each filmmaker in the order of their film and the film program. So Che is first, and I might call his projects forensic filmmaking, trying to make sense of events by putting things back together or redoing them, remaking, re-embodying missing parts, reviewing histories by reenacting events, and looking for the missing information. Che, can you describe your process of conceptualizing re-rupture and how you decided what needed to be animated?
Yes, rupture. I need to explain the background about this video. It's a 15 minutes video, and it's I combine the 2 different events. They both happened in 1995 on the same place on the bridge. The first event is about a film festival. In 1995, a curator, is a very young curator. He's only 25 years old, and he have an idea. He want to hang on a human-shaped balloon on the air, on the bridge in the air, and the human-shaped balloon is 6 meters, so it's very huge, and it's a festival idea. So it's a 1 month festival. So he has a schedule. Every day he want to hang on different things by the balloon. For example, the washing machine, the TV, different things. And he also plan hang on a guitar player in the air. But eventually, he really make the balloon, and he really make hand on the balloon on the air, but only for 1 day. The second day, on the second day, the balloon is broken, so the festival is failed. And the second event in the video is about two taxi organizations fighting each other under the bridge. And it's also happened in 1995, and it's two taxi organizations fighting, but actually it's also two gangsters. And the gangsters, the two gangsters, they support the different party in Taiwan. So it's also a political issue. And the two events is also about how to say that? It's also they both about the sorry my English, how to say that? It's both sorry, because in 1995 Taiwan just ended the martial law. So the two events is all about the underground culture in Taiwan, and also about the social movements in Taiwan in 1990s. So I combine the two events and then make this video. I also combine the animation in the video. I want to sorry. I also need to explain this part. I need to explain because in Taiwan, the news media, the company, they have a very special way to make news. The news company every day they will choose 2 or 3 events, especially in violence events, and they will make the animation to report. It's very weird. I think it's only happened in Taiwan and Hong Kong. Yes. So actually, I also interview the news company before, and I interviewed the storyboard director. She worked in the news company. Yes, and then she tell me. I mean, she tell me how did they make news, because normally make an animation is it's not short time. It's need and spend a lot of time to make an animation, but they every day they will make 2 or 3 events. So so they have a lot of data. I mean, for example, today something happened, so they have the victim data. They also have the suspects data. I mean, the data means the age, the skin color, so they need to make a news very quickly. So when the victim is very similar, I mean, the age is similar, the skin color is similar, they will use the same model in the different news. So it's very weird, and actually I mean, I inspired by the news media in Taiwan, because when I see the news, I realize the boundary between the reality and the virtual is blurred. It's not clear, and it's also very powerful for me. So it's the reason why in my different work I always think about the relationship between the real body and the virtual models. Yes, thank you.
Thanks, Chayu. That was fascinating. And news about animated news. Let's move on to Bertrand. Bertrand, you and Benjamin have jammed together 2 image realms. It's a surprising convergence, given that Benjamin's work has mainly been in mainly been in narrative fiction, and yours is known for raucous computer animated worlds and performance and theater works. How did you 2 very different filmmakers decide to work together to make this little cherry bomb of a piece that combines found footage with animation? I hope you know what a cherry bomb is.
So Benjamin and I are friends since we were students together at Le Fresnoy in France. And we already made like a project together. We went to Iceland. I went to Iceland with Benjamin to shoot his project, his student project, and he played as an actor to mine. So one day we decided to try to mix our. So I developed like more experimental movies with CGI, and Benjamin developed like more narratives movies for cinema, shooting with film, like a 16mm film, and we found interesting to try to do something together. And Benjamin was doing Fort Buchanan. It's a feature movie with the characters are soldiers, but it's a kind of Eric Romer fable. And so we try to find an intersection between our two practices, and maybe there was a link between CGI and war. CGI is at the intersection between the war industry and the entertainment industry. So we were thinking about how to mix together. So he, for his movie, he searched for archive for the Congress. And he found this film archive about the Vietnam War. And I think like Benjamin found these images very seducing, because they show like very beautiful soldiers, almost naked, just playing and fighting in the river. So it was a kind of erotic found footage about the war, but also propaganda. And then we dropped in this footage like maybe we choose the most stupid thing we found. It's like there is a soft drink called Oasis in France, and the characters are like digital fruits, and you can see them everywhere in the subway, in the street. And so we dropped these characters in the archive.
That's great. Thank you.
That's it. That's the reason.
And also,
the
I mean,
movie.
like Chayu, there's cultural references that I couldn't understand unless you explain them, and it becomes, you know, ever more rich an experience to see the works. I apologize that I'm not going to do a lot of follow-up questions after each one of you guys, just for the interest of time. And then also we'll have audience questions after we're done doing the round, but I always have lots of questions for you. Thanks, Bertrand. I guess next in line up was Eszter. Your work is very subtle and very funny, adding slight animations to ordinary and often sullen characters that you draw or paint. You say in a statement that, quote, "In my most recent series, I'm investigating the anger of everyday people and their possibilities for disobedience. The short video loops and the small-sized paintings depict moments when the weary and inert bodies of the meek start to invigorate and jump out of the boiling water. And Eszter, I've changed my question to you a little bit. Now I'm going to ask, all of your work that I know of is hand-drawn or painted animation. In this piece, you chose photographs as a base layer. Can you talk about your decision to use photography this time?
Well, yeah, it's true that I was, my starting point often is everyday people that I see in Hungary, people that I don't know. I just see them on streets, and I often work with them as a starting point, looking for very, very ordinary characteristics. And with this work, we were actually looking for a flat, and I bumped into many real estate ads, flats for rent or for sale. And in Hungary, I don't know how it is elsewhere, but at least in Hungary, when people sell their flats, they make photos of the flat as they are living in them. So it's not all cleaned up and nice, but you can somehow sneak or peek into these spaces, these very personal spaces. And I got really interested in these photographs because you can see traces of how they want, what their ideas of beauty is, and you can catch their somehow their needs to be spiritual or something special, and yeah, all these decorations. And so I was kind of deriving from the spaces and imagining the people and the activities that go on there. So then I created this kind of non-narrative collage of these imaginative spaces. But yeah, the starting point is very real. So so yes, and finally I didn't create a narrative of it, but it's more like a moving image that is ever looping, and the viewer has to find and create their own narratives. So there are windows, just like in the Zoom situation, that you look around with your eyes.
I think we can mention too, Eszter, that typically, we had to talk about this a little bit, is a piece like this of yours doesn't have a one-time screening. It shows on a small screen in a gallery where it loops. Is that correct? Right.
Yes. Most of my works don't really have a narrative because I'm coming from a painter background, so I do paintings and drawings, and very rarely I work with or I have ideas that are narrative, but mostly I'm interested in this type of moving image, where when it's the viewer who creates somehow the narrative. And it was very interesting. I created earlier, some years earlier, a version of this video where I cut. I was creating a narrative from this video with cutting different rooms one after the other, and we were discussing about this, if we should show this version or this original version. And yeah, it was an interesting discussion, and I'm happy that finally we chose to stay with this
indeed
version.
And I ultimately I felt that the cutting actually made it much more conventional. Like the looping version was much more compelling because of this sort of endlessness. It just goes on forever, and that ultimately is what I wanted to see. I think that's what when I asked you to join the group, that's the piece that I had seen. And the funny thing is Adam had mentioned that it's too bad because the images are so small, too bad we couldn't project it in the theater. And I had to respond to Adam. It's like, no, Eszter doesn't show them that way. Like, it's going to be seen the way the way you typically show it. It's on like this little screen of my computer.
Well, I did in the Frenois, actually. I was creating that when I was a student in Le Frenois. It was my first year diploma. And I projected it in a 2 meter by 3 meter size. So size is important in this video's case, because otherwise you just don't see the little nuances. So so yeah, it would be nice to if it was shown in a huge screen.
Then we could like enter the little rooms as they go. Yeah. Thank you, Eszter. I'm going to switch over to Zaina because she's has time limited. She's got to go to another. She's going to go to another screening. Let's switch over to Zaina. Yeah, your father says when it comes to film, we should forget about reality. I love his statements. He says, quote, "We all need to live with this illusion. We cannot survive without this very realistic illusion," unquote. What do you think of your father's admonition?
I was thinking a lot about hope when I was talking to him, and I just felt like in that moment, it's really difficult to contend with hope in a situation like Palestine, of course. So, oh, am I frozen?
I see you and hear you.
Oh, okay, good. Everyone else froze. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, like I was thinking about how hope was such a tough commodity, you know, like a tough thing to talk about in this context. And when you put it in the framework of fiction and how that kind of manifests, it's like a detour into thinking about hope rather than just spelling it out. Because if you were to say these things in reality, if you were to say that, no, things will happen and it will be fine, it feels like, you know, this optimism that's very dangerous in some moments. And so when you use fiction as a vehicle to manifest those desires, to manifest those potentialities, it becomes its own liberating event. It becomes its own way of, you know, manifesting this idea of the possible without falling into traps of optimism or positivity. So I feel like that for me was the moment where there was a dissonance between my father and I was like, why would I just continue depicting this kind of, you know, impossibility? And for him, it's for me, it's like giving up if I were to think that way. And it was very violent, and sorry about that, but it was very violent for him to think that way within the realms, especially of cinema, and, you know, the relationship between documentary and fiction, and how each one of them can create its own forms of, let's say, you know, resistance of reality, and it can also create its own alternative realities and potentialities that are really important for the psyche of the people living under this kind of oppression. So yeah, I mean, it was the most striking moment for me. It was the moment when I felt like we need this hope, but we also need to understand the dangers of it. And that was the moment that felt for me like it was a nice way to settle into these questions without falling into their traps.
That's great. I'm so happy to hear that too, Zaina, because the maybe I picked it up from your work. I picked it up from all, but I just added that bit in my introduction about hope a couple of days ago, and I thought, this is really, it just seemed corny that I was feeling this, like there was something hopeful about interfering with the image, and I thought, what the hell, I'm just going to talk about it anyway. So you so confirmed my feeling coming from these works. Yeah, thank you. It's really beautiful. Okay, I'm going to go backwards to, I guess, Katia. Tell us how it felt kissing passports and eating money, and how you chose to alter your character's image in front of the Brandenburg Gate, since your image isn't altered in the rest of the film, just in that.
Well, I would definitely not recommend it because I both like I got the Ukrainian passport of a friend of mine, and I disinfected also the money, like the notes, banknotes beforehand, and it just tasted disgusting. Like I honestly almost had to throw up, which would have been a pretty bad sight in front of, like, you know, this important symbol, the Brandenburg Gate and all that. Although it probably would have added a little bit more proper performativity, but yeah, there are, you know, frontiers that I don't want to cross. And yeah, and well, it was also about creating this kind of sense of irreality, and also, you know, trying to find a way of, you know, having a barrier in between, like, you know, this kind of like dancing or performance sequences in the castle as, yeah, juxtaposed with the ones in front of the gate. But yeah, also I just didn't want to get into trouble, into legal trouble by showing people's faces. So maybe that's actually the real reason, but I don't want to talk about that because that would sound less smart.
That sounds pretty smart, actually. I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about the, because you do a lot of performance as well as video, right? Isn't that true? Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, my background, I mean, I studied creative writing, but I always thought it's possible to see literature as something bigger, like not just text. So that's basically always the thing. Performance is text, video is text. I mean, there are so many, you know, parallels, and also, yeah, things where all those kind of art forms overlap. So that's what I'm interested in exactly.
Thanks, Katia. Okay, Anna. In addition to your work in video, you also do animation, live performance, and gallery exhibition. Please talk about how you conceptualize this piece, in particular the enchanting writing that's often contradicted rather than illustrated by the picture.
Yeah, thank you. It's a bit hard for me to talk about where it all started, the concept, because some of the things that I do are very quick, like animations usually are like this, that I see it like the basic story right away. But here it was different because this is a very complex piece. It started with my need to try to understand the geopolitical world which we all live in. So it started with research, with watching a lot of news and reading Karl Marx Capital. I think I always give probably a bit different explanation how I started this, but it was a lot of things. But reading Capital looked like something that would help me understand things, and I listened to David Harvey as well with his geographical explanations. So, and from there I had this idea that because I wanted to do something visual. So I thought, what could be visual about politics and and geopolitics? And I came to the city. The city is formed because of capitalism. So I thought, okay, let's try to see the cities and see if they can tell a story. And the text came out of a lot of writing. I wrote a lot of different texts and gave it to one of my friends that is a dramaturg for theater. And one of these texts was written like a letter. And all of the others were more theoretical and so on. And she said, this is more personal, this works much better. So this is how I decided to go for the letters. And I think it's also one of the reasons why I went for the letters is because I was watching the series I Love Dick, which is all about letters. So it came out of this. And I always wanted to do, like in all of my work, I want to do a bit of irony, a bit of humor, because I think that the things that I talk about are a bit heavy in general in life, and to talk about them. So I think humor helps us digest things and go forward and be hopeful, let's say, as for a different future.
Fantastic. Thank you, Anna. Yes, that letter form too gives it, to me, it gives it this interesting scale, and that is from the personal to the global, and like very up close to, and because that's so absurd, it becomes humorous. And then it charms us, and then your politics charm us, and it works really beautifully. I'm kind of curious about, I suppose there's various ways to do that, but your use of special effects is so adept, like, and so sneaky. It would work. It's great for propaganda, right? As you just slip in certain things. And though you didn't, unlike some of the other works, you didn't enact that by hand on the image. I guess I'm curious how you came to that, to really use special effects to change the image in front of our eyes, rather than just talk about it.
This came from another work that I did a few years before this. I was in Kosovo, and I was doing interviews about monuments, because I saw that there was only one monument of a woman in Kosovo, in Pristina, but this is the problem everywhere. So and I was asking feminists there why they think that this is like this, like why are there just so few women in the monuments. And she explained, she said, well, maybe, I don't know if there should be more, maybe we should get rid of all of them. So I thought I just wanted to see how this would look, and then I made a picture, a photo, and I cleaned out the monument, from the biggest monument they had there, and I looked at it. And when I showed it in the exhibition, the people were really like, it has a really big effect. And from then on, I thought, wow, this could be used for something else as well. So it started like with that, and then it just grew.
That's great. Thanks, Anna. And finally, Anouk, your bio says that your recent work is based on the utopian idea of radical empathy. This idea sounds delicious. Can you tell us more about that? You're muted, Anouk. Anouk, you're muted.
Sorry.
There you are.
There I am. Yeah, it does sound, that's what I was saying when I was muted. It does sound delicious, this idea of radical empathy, soft power. Well, I mean, in general, I'm incredibly interested in other ways of seeing and other ways of making images, which means that I've experimented a lot with technology and with scale. For example, by making images with an electron microscope or with a 3D scanner, LiDAR technique, etc., digital animation. Come to think of it, I've made a lot of films without a camera, I have to say, up till It, actually, where we combined filmed images with digital animation. But to come to your question, my more recent work is inspired by this idea of radical empathy, which is in a way continuation of my research into other ways of seeing and other ways of making images, where now I'm looking into You could say in an emotional way of seeing people in the world and questioning perspective. How may I look at another? Can a perspective be exchanged or even shared, etc.? And in the end, the highest form of imagination is to put yourself in someone else's shoes.
That's fabulous. And very exciting and intriguing, the idea of like a different way of seeing, imagining, which I think is very much indicated by what I'm calling the frustration with photographic representation. It's like that's not enough for what we need to see now. So we have to make it different and change it. There was something. It occurred to me too, is that adding text descriptions, like in your piece, also embellishes the image, since it creates images and sound in the viewer's mind. Just to have a black screen with type, because text description creates image, right? So it's another way to alter. And I guess I had another question for you that was inspired by something I heard you say in a different Q&A, that you were quite dedicated to the integrity of the eclipse shot, in particular, the duration that you felt ethically you needed to show that eclipse from beginning to end. Maybe you could also tell the viewers here is that is what it is an eclipse projected onto a paper, right? Something like
kind
that.
of. I mean, I'm happy that you interpret it that way. I mean, we shot it in a quite an abstract way. I mean, in an abstract enough way so that you could interpret it in that way, which is great. But so yeah, we as a starting point, we took this idea of exploring the experience of an eclipse, and I came about a description of Virginia Woolf, by Virginia Woolf, where she experienced an eclipse in 1927, which is of course a completely different experience than how we learn about the eclipse. I mean, there's millions of cameras. When there is an eclipse in our time, there's millions of cameras pointed at this event. But when she wrote about it, she says, we had seen the world dead, which is an incredible poetic, more layered way, you could say, of experiencing this event. And I think in our time, it's become this very visual event, whereas when I've lived an eclipse, I was more intrigued by the sonic changes that happened. And so Tom and I, because this is a collaborative film, Tom, who is a photographer, we kind of started with this idea of having a blind man as a protagonist. I'm not sure if you really get it from the text, but that's not important. It just, for us, it was a good exercise that a blind man would talk about his experience of an eclipse, because he doesn't have the sight, so he has to go by hearing, by touch, by the feeling of this event. And so that's why we took a blind man as the narrator, you could say, who is very present at the beginning of the film through text.
Because the sonic changes, and also I recall as a kid, not so much as an adult, but as a kid, that it got cold. The world got cold. I think that's what Virginia Woolf's talking about. It got dark and cold, and the birds stopped singing. So sonically, the world does go to, I mean, it's silent. And
Exactly.
Yeah. And
Exactly.
which is immensely disturbing to all of the beings. Not just the human creatures. You feel it. you know, but of course,
It's a-
all the creatures feel it.
It's a very primal experience, I would say. And I mean, and actually, I didn't respond to your question before. I mean, to talk about the ending of it. So where you said this filming of the eclipse, it's actually, we filmed, we kind of projected the sun through an upside down telescope, and we projected it on a piece of paper. So it's actually just the sun, the stretch of the sun, basically, in its actual time.
So there's no eclipse at all.
No,
Just the
it's
sun,
just the
right?
sun projected through a telescope, and it seems slow, but it's the actual time. It's
Right.
all time. It's primal time. It's animal time, and that's why we decided to do it this way. It's our time. It's our speed, our natural speed.
It's shocking to me how effective that is, because I recognized it as a device to look at an eclipse, because I've done it before, taken a telescope or a lens and projected onto paper when an eclipse was going by. But the other day when I was looking at your piece, I thought, wait a minute, that shape isn't quite right if something was going over the sun. Nevertheless, because of the device you used, I identified it as an eclipse, because that's the only reason you would do that, is to look at an eclipse.
Well, we tried it out, and it also had this effect on us. So yeah.
It was really a mnemonic, if nothing else. I was kind of interested in your dedication to, I guess, the ethics of letting the sun go through its course from one side of the frame to the other side of the frame. And yet, you had no compunction about adding in fireflies where none existed. Like this, like the thin veil between like reality, as we started out talking. It's like what's real and what's created. Is that?
But that was actually, yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that was actually also the whole what is it, goal or adventure of our collaboration, because Tom is someone he's a photographer, so he uses a camera. He uses an actual camera, which I found wild, and he makes his images, and I mostly work in animation. But there were so many affinities between us, and a lot of similarities in our work. I mean, we're both passionate about the use of black and white, about rendering the invisible visible, about light and darkness and the meeting between the two. And so we were curious, actually, what would come up if we would work together. And there was a constant, I knew this before, I knew this in the beginning, and so did Tom, like this, we have a different starting point. I mean, I'm not really interested in reality. I want to create a possible world, where he is more interested in finding the poetic in the real. And so there is this friction in which was very pleasant. I mean, it was not a friction that was annoying. And that's exactly what you pointed out is the nature of our collaboration, is the fireflies. That was kind of like a battle I won in a sense, because I also wanted to do the ending in animation, but then he said, no, we should try to keep it as real as possible. And then if we would have found an area with a lot of fireflies, but we didn't, we would have also just filmed them, I guess. And we've tried to think of ways to conjure up or to lure fireflies into our forest, but that didn't happen. But so yeah, it was more because of our practices meeting and coming together.
And I think, ironically, I've tried to shoot fireflies. It's really not, it's not easy. But I think it's ironic that the very poetry of this piece, the poetics of this piece, are in the fact that you added those fireflies. Like that, to me, that's where the pathos is like, it's it almost brings me to tears. It's like, I need fireflies in this forest. Where am I going to get them? They're gone. We have to make them ourselves now, and we have to make fakes, and we can't have the real experience of being in the forest with fireflies anymore. I think that is, it's not only poetic, it's really pathetic too. It's, I guess it's the same thing. It's sad, it's mournful. In this way, the gesture is hopeful, but the reality is pretty sad. That there aren't, the fireflies aren't there. Maybe they are, but they're, you know, we're losing them. We're losing all of them.
Yeah, we have to make them ourselves.
We have to make them ourselves. And like Eszter has to make her neighbors herself. So, or Che-Yu has to put that history back together again because it's fallen apart. I think, you know, I think at this point we can open, Adam, we're open to any questions from the audience. He's going to get them from the Inventive site, so I don't see any. And apparently there's no questions entered yet, but maybe you filmmakers have questions of each other. I'd like to give space for that too, or comments, even comments on each other's work.
Yeah, I would just like to say that I really loved all of your films. And I just want to give like a special kudos to Eszter. Like, I really love this diorama look because I'm also doing a project about dioramas right now. So it was so brilliant. I mean, there's a lot to be said about all of you guys, so maybe a little bit more later, but it's really inspiring to see your works. So Anna's I already knew from experiments in cinema. So yeah, keep up the good work.
Thanks, Katia. Yeah, keep up the good work.
Yeah, I mean, also Eszter, like all the focus is on you now. No, I had to think also about one of my absolute favorite films. I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Rybczynski, Tango. You know this film? I love this film, and I really your film really reminded me of that. It's one of my favorite films. I mean, for those of you who don't know it, it's a film where there's an apartment and there's like a continuous loop of people walking around in the apartment, and it's almost as if Eszter's film is happening in one apartment.
Yeah, it's always looping, and somehow everybody fits. So first there is a guy coming up the stairs, crossing the room, and then another person jumping out on the window, but they never hit each other. So it's a crazy world of parallel words somehow that just exist next to each other. Yeah, I really like that film as well.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I do like the ideas of looping. So yeah, because I think it represents something very true in our lives, that everything or everybody is just going around in their own circles. So
it's a different experience of film too. If you loop something, it's kind of like a floating world where you can live for a while rather than you're in and then you're out. It's kind of like this floating world that's there forever, and you can be in that space for as long as you want if it's presented in a gallery.
That's a wonderful characterization.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, yeah, I do like this form because it doesn't, somehow it's really open. So if somebody is just interested for 5 seconds, then they can get some idea of it already in 5 seconds. But if somebody wants to stay, then, and nobody really, yeah, you can read the length, but the length is not really representative because it just means that, for example, in this video's case, after 4.5 minutes, you will exactly see the same thing, but it doesn't, you don't have to stay for 4.5 minutes. Yeah.
But the experience of that duration is very much conditioned on the fact that there's a lot in that frame. So the sense of duration is that I can't see everything in 4.5 minutes. I need to see it like 8 times in order to keep track of every little frame. Now that 4.5 minutes is a very different experience, say in the Anouk's piece, where another feature of representation, let's say, is the duration. Is like in Anouk's piece, the duration of that dark frame when we're reading, or in the forest, not waiting exactly, but noticing that things are changing in the forest. Little by little, noticing things are changing in the forest. It takes a long time it's like, okay, beautiful forest, I love duration, I'm sitting here, and it's like, wait a minute, something's happening. Wait, there's another one. Wait, there's another one. And this is like unfolding experience that takes 4.5 minutes or however long that is. You couldn't do that in a compressed piece of time.
Mm. Well, it's yeah. I just, as you're saying it, I was thinking that one of the conversations I think we had was we were trying to expand seeing. I mean, that's what I was talking about earlier as well, like to extend it to hearing, to touch, and even to being aware, which is also a form of seeing, but without your eyes. It's just becoming aware with your whole body of the space that you're in and the little shifts that happen around you. It's seeing, but in a very attentive way, with a lot of attention, or at least trying to.
Absolutely. And in that aspect, it's another challenge in terms of representation. It's like, is reality quick or is it slow?
Hmm.
And like, which one? And how long does it? A continuing question of mine, an abiding question of mine, is how long does it take to see something?
Mm.
How long do I can look for a really long time, especially coming up on structuralist film. I can sit through James Benning as long as he wants me to be looking at that picture. I'll look at that picture. But then at the end of looking at that picture, it's like, did I see it? Did I, I'm not sure. It's still a question. How long does it take? Here comes a question for Bertrand. How did you arrive at the iris out and in for each shot? Slow iris in and out. For me, it links a bit to what Anouk just mentioned, isolating seeing, adding focus. That's interesting.
Maybe it's Anouk told about the primal time, like maybe it's an archaic structure of a movie, just something like opening and closing, and maybe related also to theater, or like how do you say, like in a musical, or a kind of archaic entertainment, just like with light.
Anna, I loved your references. They go, so it went from Marx to I Love Dick. That's beautiful. I love it. I love it. I loved your film too. Really, I mean, my heart was bleeding. At the same time, it's funny, but at the same time, my I guess European heart was bleeding. But yeah, I felt it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was bleeding when I was doing the film as well.
Obviously,
but
yeah.
But I wanted to say that I really love this multi-layer of all the films actually, and the fact that actually it's always just a bit of information that you give to the viewer, not a lot, just a bit, and if you want to see it, you see it. Like with Bernard, these fruits, they were just there a bit and then go away, and then you think like, was it, did I see it? Did I not see, or what was it then? And also Eszter, also, she, you know, you have so many little things. There's a woman looking at her face, that is not so much movement actually, but because of it, it was so, I think, powerful, because you had to decide, okay, when am I going to look there or there? Is this important or not important? And also with the Anouk, I didn't know, did I see the fireflies or did I not see? And am I now seeing the time when we come from darkness to the forest very slowly? Am I there yet? Or am I not there? And also the length, I liked it because it made me, it's again new layers, because I was thinking to myself, okay, this is long now. Why am I? Why is this long to me? Is it really long? There's something else I want to see here, understand, and so on. And I love the timing of the letters. I think it maybe it look for other people it's not that important, I don't know, but for me it was. I have always problems with the timing because I'm dyslexic and I don't have time to read it. And here I didn't have problems, and I could you know enjoy it and think with it, and I had time to develop my visualization of what was written. So and also with this first film, I like these details again. You know, you say about the guitarist that he will go to work next day to back to the market, or how is it? And I was again, okay, yes. And now we have this problem of the precariat, you know. So it was like really multi-layered, all of the films, and I really enjoyed this. I think they're really powerful because of how much space they leave to the viewer. I think this is I think these films are for the viewer, that respect the viewer, because we know that they will, you know, decide for themselves if they will watch, see, understand, or do something with this.
That was great. Thanks, Anna. It made me think of something with Cheyu's work. Almost most of the ones that I know anyway, almost always have the protagonist is the narrator, does the voiceover. There's even one he has, the protagonist is in the wheelchair holding the camera as Cheyu wheels him around doing his own photography. But the guitarist who mentions like when they bring me down and when this film is done, and there's always a sense of the self-reflexive is like, I'm in a film and this is what's happening now. And the fact is that it's not happening now. I'm seeing it like a year later or whenever. That made me think of Eszter's looping, is like, just as you're indicating, Anna, is like, then he comes back down, he goes back to work, and the convenience smart. And that the life of the guitarist is looping, just like our lives are looping, right? We go back to work, we go back to, we walk out of the theater, or we turn off the computer. There's something about having, to me, there was something about having the protagonists do their own voiceover that constantly makes you aware of the present, that it's not actually happening now. It was happening now for him. And anyway, you get my point. Is that right, Cheyu? Did you follow me? Yeah. And I could even ask, is that why you have the protagonist do the voiceover in your works?
Sorry.
I'm
in
well, I guess
Rupture or the
well,
other work?
it's also in the one with the Siamese
Yes,
the
yes,
conjoined twins. Also, he does the voiceover of his own representation, right?
yes, yes.
So I'm asking you about that, about having your subjects speak for themselves.
Yes. Let me think. Sorry, so the question is why, or
Yeah, I guess the question is,
Mm.
I hate to ask a why question like that, but what do you, yeah, okay, put it that way. Why do you have that?
Yes. Okay.
But-
Okay. I can explain the work. The work. The topic is about the first Siamese twins in Taiwan, and they are already separate, and the separate surgery is happening in 1979, and in that time they are only 3 years old, and then now they are 43 years old, I think they are. Yeah. So I shoot this video in 2019. So I collaborate with one of the Siamese twins, the young brother.
Don't forget
And,
to mention that they were separated on television.
Yes, yes.
The operation to separate
Yes,
them.
I need to explain because it's in 1979, the separate surgeries in the hospital. It's crazy. It's live on TV for 12 hours. For 12 hours. So the people open the TV, they can see the whole surgery. It's very crazy. It's because I think it's a political issue, because in 1979 Taiwan is in martial law, and in the newspaper and also in the magazine, it say their body just like Taiwan and China. It means they come from same life and separate now. Yeah, and yes, so of course they are become very famous, like an icon in 1980s, like a symbol. And in the video, I use two techniques to copy their body. The first, I don't know how to say that. It's a copy their body like a sculpture. And the other way is 3D scan. I use the 3D scans to scan their body. Because in 1979, before the surgeries, the hospital want to copy their body in order to practice the surgeries, but it's not successful because they are only 3 years old and they keep moving, and yeah, so it's not successful. But the hospital tell me if they do again, they will use the 3D scan because now it's a higher technique. So I just reproduce the hospital's idea to scan their body now, and I also invited the young brother to be my actor and also talk his story in by voiceover, talk his memory. Yes, and so the question is about the voiceover. It's a how to say that. Of course, I cannot. I shoot this video is not very quickly because when I contact them is in 2018, and it's I need to interview them, and I need to know their family. I need to know their story. So in the beginning, it's a little like a documentary, not in the video. Before making the video, I make some like a documentary. So we talk a lot, and eventually I decide invite him to talk to be my narrator, it's very how to say that, because he told me the story and I started to write the voiceover, and I hope he can read, and but he changed a lot. I mean, yeah, but because I use his I want to he talk because how to say that, many reasons, because actually when he was a teenager, he also become he participates one of Taiwanese movie, commercial movie, so he is an actor one times, and of course he's how to say that, he's very famous, so he really know how to face to the news media. For him, I'm also news media too, not very different. So he's very good to deal with the social media and the news media. So I think he can become the voiceover is good, because how to say that, he can read and use his viewpoints, and he changed the story, and I say, okay, you can change the story, and he changed and read. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. I've learned so much about Taiwan in the last couple of months. Any more comments or questions from the filmmakers? I'm checking the chat. I don't see anything from Adam. So I guess we can wind it up. It's been plenty of time, but yeah, he says nothing else at the moment, but I could talk to you guys forever. And I hope I have a chance to meet all of you in person. That would just be so delicious for me to have a chance to meet you all in person. I had the chance to meet Katia like a week ago in Berlin. Who knew that was ever going to happen? But I may end up there. So maybe we'll see you in Berlin or somewhere. I just became a citizen of Luxembourg. Is why I was
amazing.
Yeah.
You did the right. Yeah, you did a great job. Luxembourg is a really nice country, so small. Never did anything wrong.
Never
It's
did. No,
really
no.
a wonderful place to be.
Never did anything wrong.
No, they didn't. And they'll tell you that they never did anything wrong. Anyway, it's just been such a delight to spend a little time with you guys in person, but also a very deep pleasure and honor for me to spend so much time with your works. So thank you so much.
Thank you for
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
Thank you.
approaching us and for actually, putting so much time into creating a beautiful screening. This is, yeah,
My
thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you, Katia. You're welcome.
And thank you all for joining us, for being present at Filmforum. I look forward to showing more of your films in the future. I want to thank everybody who watched the conversation today. And again, it'll remain on Eventive as long as the screening is up, and then it will live on Filmforum's YouTube page, which we hope you can also check out many past conversations with wonderful filmmakers. And with that,
the films will be up for another 2 days.
2 days until the night of the 26th of October. So with that, thank you all very much for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your Sunday and a good week. And we'll look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.